Hello and welcome to Bass Fishing 202. I'm your host, Lance Perticone. In this lesson, I'm going to introduce you to what I call the Bonaparte Rig. In Central Florida, Gary Day and I were fishing on Lake Winterset. Now this lake is typical of the area in that it's bowl-shaped with a few deeper sinkholes, but that's where the similarity ends. This lake has the clearest water of any lake I've ever been on in Florida. Water visibility is at least 12 feet, and there's a ring of hydrilla and eelgrass all the way around the lake growing to a depth of 22 feet. For 3 years running, the January bait of choice had been the 3.3-inch Kitech Swing Impact swim bait on a 1/4-ounce darter head jig. We would fish it around the outside edge of the weed lines in 18 to 22 feet of water, and we would just keep catching fish up to 8 pounds. There were days I never picked up another rod all day long. For whatever reason, maybe because of the severity of the cold fronts we just endured, the swim bait bite produced way fewer bites and way smaller fish. When we returned after a frustrating day of small fish, I armed myself with the Bonaparte Rig. First, a little background. Back about 20 years ago or so, my parents had a camp on Lake Bonaparte, a Canadian shield-type lake in the foothills of New York's Adirondack Mountains. I would fly up to visit, and I would fish out of my dad's boat. My mom and dad both loved to fish, but dad was totally anti-technology. So I fished from a 16-foot V-hull aluminum boat with a 9.9 horsepower outboard, no depth sounders, and 2 oars for a trolling motor. This lake was clear and deep with milfoil growing to 12 feet or so. I eventually learned I could catch fish on a wacky-rigged trick worm with a little nail weight around the deep grass, but the wind always seemed to be blowing, so boat control was nearly impossible. It was really a rare time that it was common enough for me to use this technique. I had the idea to wacky-rig a trick worm on a drop shot, and from that time on, catching fish on Lake Bonaparte was a snap for me. And even better yet, I found that this trick worked anywhere I had deep weeds and clear water. Since I came up with this trick with no outside help, I don't feel bad about calling it what I want. Hence, the Bonaparte Rig. About that.
Now they're starting to bite.
Naturally, there are several variations, but here's the way I rigged it up for Lake Winterset. On the one spinning rod I brought with me, I tied on an 8-foot leader of 10-pound test fluorocarbon line. I would normally use about 8-pound tests, but because of the depth and because I was hoping for very large bass, I went with 10. I used an open 1/0 wide gap hook. Naturally, you'd need to use a weedless hook if you're fishing around timber. I used a 6 to 18-inch drop. The longer drop was a little more effective in this case because it really helped keep the worm just ticking the very top of those deep weeds. I would normally use a 3/16 ounce sinker for this rig, but because the water was so deep in this case, I went with a 1/4 ounce drop shot sinker instead. So when it's all put together, the rig looks like this.
Probably the guides. Get one? On the way down. I like that,
Wow. Maybe 13.
Big?
No.
Way to catch him. That's a decent one.
Not better than anything you caught, but better than.
Better one. Sure as hell don't want this. Oh, that makes me. I was out of the book of Gary, just letting it drag.
So the wacky-rigged trick worm on a drop shot, aka the Bonaparte rig, is a terrific way to catch fish around clear water grass. I like it best around the deep outer edges, and like the mini Carolina rig, the Bonaparte rig catches fish under most conditions, but it really shines during post-cold front or heavily pressured situation when bites are really at a premium. Hey, thanks for spending some time with me today. Please tell your friends and junior anglers about this series. Remember, it's Bass Fishing 202 because it's a little more advanced than Bass Fishing 101. Please subscribe, be well, and I'll see you all next time.